Dear listeners, we apologize for the delay in releasing this episode. Due to technical difficulties, we missed the original deadline on releasing this episode. We appreciate your patience and hope you enjoy this episode of Bootstrapped Unicorns. Best regards, the Bootstrapped Unicorn team.
He's a visionary and an entrepreneur. I'm what we call a reluctant entrepreneur. I was an entrepreneur because I had to, and I also didn't want to go to my grave without saying that I tried it, you know?
Yep, fair.
Right?
Yeah.
But as a reluctant entrepreneur, I have all the skills to be an entrepreneur except maybe his vision. So when we were first talking, he and I said, wouldn't it be great if you had the best number two that you'll ever find? And I don't want to be number one. I don't want to be you. I don't want to be the CEO. What I want to be is behind the scenes and make you look great.
Welcome back to Bootstrapped Unicorns. I'm so glad you're back again. If you watched last episode, you were here to listen to us talk about, remodeling homes, building homes, flipping homes. There's a lot of home activity happening there. And I guess we're falling into a theme because today we've got guests on who are going to talk about architecture and what it means to own an architecture firm. So get ready, we're gonna have a great conversation. As you know, we are now in the new studios and we're about 80% built out right now.
Looks good.
Thank you, yeah, and it's going pretty okay. Hey, you know what, that's architect company approved right there. I just got it looks good. And we designed it ourselves. Amateurs sometimes pull some things off, though I don't recommend it, and you're gonna hear why you wanna work with these guys in a little bit. But, so we got one camera today, which is why it's gonna look a little bit different. I can't wait, we're about to build out the rest, give us a week or two. And I should also remind you that we're sponsored by HireVP. HireVP is a great company that has placed two of our absolutely cherished employees in our business. If you've heard virtual assistant as a term, that is what they used to use in that industry. But when you get people this high quality and this well trained and this able to integrate into your culture, you get a professional, not an assistant. So we have virtual professionals. And if you're interested in learning more about that, one, you can reach out to me, I'll tell you our story. But two, you can go to hirevp.com/unicorns and you'll get 10% off your first 3 months of having your own virtual professional. And you will get that white glove concierge level touch that you get from HireVP in the process of hiring. It's a little scary to hire in the first place. And then you get into the world of VAs, it could be really scary because nobody knows what they're talking about, except for these guys. So you'll be in great hands. Tell Scott that I sent you and say hi for me. Without further ado, I'm gonna go butcher some last names right now and apologize publicly. So we have Nathan Aleskovsky.
Right on.
Very good.
Wow, all right.
Nailed it.
And Frank, no longer Davi, it's Frank Davi.
Correct.
Yes, okay. So I'm getting these things better. We hang out, we like each other, we don't use each other's last names. And so this is what I'm learning. Okay. So thanks for being on the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
So you have an architecture firm, and that's what I was introduced to when I met you guys. Now we're just buddies. But what is the thing that you guys do? What is the problem you solve in the world? And then I really want to get into two big things. What's it mean to own this business? And also, what is it meant to partner with each other? And that is an interesting integration that I think went swimmingly that we'll all learn from today. But what are you guys doing?
Sure. So Aleskovsky Architecture and Interiors, we are a full service architectural design and interior design firm. We work primarily on commercial projects. I would say that runs probably 60 to 75% of our work. The other is residential, mostly of sort of large scale renovations, additions, or new construction.
Okay, what does full service mean?
So that is a good question. We look to really have a hands-on partnership with our clients from the initial inception of the project. That even can be from finding land, right? Identifying all of that, performing feasibility studies to make sure they can build what they want to build on that land, all the way through the design process, and then also staying on board all the way through the construction process.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that a lot of people here in Florida anyway expect the architect to stop once construction starts, and that doesn't make any sense to either one of us. If you're let's look at a painter as an example. If you're going to be the painter that comes up with the idea or the drawing, but then you hand the actual painting of that idea over to someone else, that makes zero sense. So if you look at the architects that hand off their designs to a contractor, who knows how that contractor is going to interpret those drawings? So it's really important for the artist to be there with that paintbrush, so to speak. And that's full service for us. That's one aspect of it. And I think the other aspect is we love our clients. We love our clients. And we are lucky enough to be able to work with great people. And so when you talk about full service, they have our personal cell phone numbers. We answer questions. We help them through the process. I mean, it's a very complicated process, what we do. And to be those experts that are like, it's going to be okay. We're gonna take care of you through this. It's great. I mean, that's full service to us, right? You agree?
Yep. And I think the other aspect is that we have a full interior design department in-house, and then as well as all of any other consultant that would be needed throughout the construction process, whether that's geotechnical engineering, surveying, mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineering, structural engineering. All of those consultants come in under our umbrella. So you have that full team with one point of responsibility. So
now that's wise.
Yes.
So I've actually run into this in my industry. So we had this really incredible woman who owned this massive financial firm in the Midwest.
Yeah.
And she comes to us and wants us just to handle a certain type of video. And then she's got a funnel guy, and she's got a website guy, and she's got somebody helping her ghostwrite her book, and she's got somebody helping to separately market the book, and then all of these separate things. I said, so how often do all these people talk? And she goes, what do you mean? I'm like, oh. I said, so what's your brand document look like? And she goes, oh, everybody's got a copy of it. It was like 3 pages of almost no information. And I remember thinking, there's going to be a war. Yeah. It's not going to happen today. It's not going to happen tomorrow. But at some point, there will be casualties. And I love hearing that you guys, you're willing to take that point position and say somebody's got to lead the charge. Somebody's got to translate information. Somebody's got to document all of the things. How much work is that?
It's more work up front for us prior to construction beginning.
Okay.
But it's less work than if all of that is not coordinated before construction begins. And that's what we're trying to avoid. So the idea is really to make the client design and construction experience as seamless and enjoyable as it possibly can be.
Yeah.
And so if we can eliminate or try to eliminate as many hurdles that will come up of, we have a beam here and the, HVAC contractor wants to run his duct right through that. We want to catch those things beforehand so there's not some big ugly transition that has to go around the beam, or a change order to resize things that slow down the schedule, cost the client tons of money. So by having all of those consultants, even contractors on board very early in the design process, from budgeting to just coordinating all of the drawings and design details, that provides for the construction process to be as quick and seamless and cost-effective as possible.
And we tell our clients that right from the beginning. When they come in, when they're still prospects and they were referred to us, or organically they came to us, we sit down with them and we tell them, listen, we're here, we're stewards of your money, we're here to make your life easier. And it's a relationship, but that relationship has to have mutual trust. And you have to trust us when we say you might spend a little bit more time or money in pre-construction, but we're going to get it right so that when you go to construction, there are less mistakes or questions. They get that. They understand that. And it's like an aha moment for a lot of our clients, that they're like, yes, because everybody's heard horror stories about construction. Horror stories.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So when you're able to say, yes, there's still going to be problems. There's always going to be problems in construction. But if we can get in front of 90% of them now, and it might take a little longer, and you might spend a little bit more money now in pre-construction, but if you can save that money in construction,
And it's a huge multiplier on the return. I
Exactly.
mean, if you delay a schedule, even residential, by a week or two, you're spending several $1,000s a week in supervision that the contractor's charging. And on commercial, right? And now you're getting into, if you didn't open when you were supposed to, you're getting the construction time and the supervision and any change order costs plus the lost revenue, right? If it's a restaurant that's not open, that's 7 days of not being able to serve. And so there's a huge multiplier in being able to open quicker and having that construction process be smooth, that a little bit of more money spent in pre-construction equals a lot of money saved, or potential money saved, that we're avoiding the hurdles of during construction.
So if I recall, when we had our last chat, this was kind of an aha that you had when you were in transition in a previous, you going from employment to a future employer. You hung a shingle. Where did this understanding, this realization come from? Because it seems like a lot of the industry is wired that opposite way. It's like, in fact, in our industry, it's another thing that's very well aligned. Fix it in post. Have you heard the term?
Yep.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we'll shoot it, and then we'll fix the lighting, we'll fix the audio, everything in post-production. And nobody realizes how long, just labor, not including all of the extra crap we might have to buy in order to pull it off. That's a mess. But I think your industry does the same thing in general.
I think in general, yeah.
And so you guys aren't. How did you get from that world to your new world?
Why don't you answer first, and then I'll.
I mean, I think I don't think it was always necessarily the impetus for starting my own, but through speaking with clients and prospective clients who had, in particular, ones who had to deal with a construction project or an architect in the past, there was very few. And that's, probably partly why they were looking for another one. But there was very few positive experiences. And it all came down to not having everything figured out. That there was poor communication between, the architect and the client, between the architect and the contractor. That all of the things that they wanted to do, none of it was coordinated. And it became a huge headache. And, the design team was now out of it. And it became the client dealing with all of the resolved design problems or unselected finishes or a light fixture that hangs from the top instead of from the bottom in terms of a wall sconce, and so the junction box wasn't in the right spot. All of those things fall on the contractor and the client and the homeowner or the business owner to figure out in the field, and all of those things cost a tremendous amount more money than if it was just properly documented in the drawings. So that's the experience that we hear over and over again. And so we're just, how do we provide a design experience that's different than that?
Yeah.
Where one that is as seamless as it can be through the design process all the way through construction. And there's really, part of it is being detailed and accurate in the drawings. And the other part is making sure that we are involved during the construction process, because we know what that light fixture is going to be. And in the initial framing and the rough-in of the electric, if we see that junction box is in the wrong spot, we can correct it before there's drywall, before it's painted, before all of that stuff is there, before the light fixture goes on. That if it needs to be 6 inches higher or lower, because it is something perhaps that we missed in the drawings of the exact height, or they changed the fixture that mounts in a different way, it's easy and cheap to fix when the drywall's not on. Yeah. And so if we're involved then and we're checking in on a weekly basis or whatever the project requires, that prevents those, or helps to, prevent those types of things from happening.
I think also, sorry.
Yeah, no. I have a follow-up question, but keep going.
I think also, we all come at this with our own stories, right? And myself, I did my own full house remodels, several actually. And the one of them, I did wrong. I mean, it was before I knew. And I didn't do it like a design build, and I learned. So now I'm the most empathetic person in the world because I know what can go wrong. So when I meet with my clients, I'm like, listen, don't do what I did. Now, this is 20 years ago.
Sure.
But the point is, we are both, I think, very analytical and process driven. And when you're process driven, it's really important that you never deviate from that process. Whenever you deviate from a process, and you look back, you're like, oh, that's when that mistake happened because we didn't follow our own process, right? So if you're process driven and you're empathetic and to the process and how complicated it is, you bring that to your clients and you naturally say, listen, I've been doing this for 18 years now. 20 years ago, I made this big mistake. I didn't know. I wasn't in the industry, but let me tell you, learn from my mistake. Let's do all this process ahead of time. Let's completely understand the timeline, the budget, the materials, where's the fluctuation in costs, how can we build this in a better way? Let's understand all of that. Let's bring the contractor in early. Like I'm saying early, like within the first month of a 6 to 9 month planning process. Let's introduce you to the contractors, several of them, and at least get to know who you might be working with. If you feel comfortable with one of them right from the beginning, because they're all going to come in right around the same price. Everyone's overhead and profit is the same. They're all going to come in the same price-ish. So let's select that contractor. The fit first, the personality, because it is truly a relationship, and then let's run with that person all the way through. Now it is truly a design build, right? My background is design build, and I can't imagine doing it any other way. You know, if Nathan was to spend several months designing something that was absolutely gorgeous, and then you have 3 contractors come in and bid it out, if our clients then can't afford what we've designed, then we've failed, right? We've failed. So you get in front of that and you say, okay, let's make the corrections on price early. Like if it's a couple $100,000 over, or if it's $20,000 over, let's figure that out right in the beginning, right? It's a funnel. Start at the top of the funnel. Can you afford this? Is this what you want to build? Is this going to make you happy for at least the next 10 years? If so, let's follow that funnel down. But if it doesn't, well, let's correct right now.
Yeah. Catch it early.
Catch it early.
So is this all part of kind of the secret sauce? Because I know you guys are growing kind of by leaps and bounds, and you're in charge of business development. And I wonder how ideal that empathy is in the business development relationship.
So that's funny you should say that, because I'm not a salesperson. I'm a business developer because I'm gregarious as a human being in general.
You are.
I'm more operations, wouldn't you say, Nathan? Sure. I'm more operations. I'm behind the scenes.
But the project operation starts with the introduction of the client, right?
Yeah.
So it falls into his purview. But it's
And
not
I like
that it's not that he's doing cold calls and that kind of stuff.
Oh, no, yeah, but you guys
not
are
on
a
a sales
relationship-driven
thing.
business. I think almost all of your, you don't advertise, right?
No, hardly.
And you don't need to.
No, I mean, just about everything has come in through word of mouth or organically, and we put kind of how we design and how we work right on our website, and we make it kind of very clear that we're not the sort of low cost, volume based design team, and when clients come in, they're kind of already they already know that that's who they're talking to.
Yeah.
And we get phone calls all the time where someone says, well, I've gotten 4 other prices, and if you can beat that, well, I'll give you the job. And we just say that's not going to be us. Like there's no point in trying on those jobs, because we're not going to be.
Do you ever ask them, like, what names did you ask? And you find one, you go, you know what, Joe over at this one's really honest. I would just go with him.
We don't even get that involved.
We don't get that far, because I think what
It would shock people.
Yeah.
what we do, I have no problem doing that, actually. I've been doing that my whole career, giving business away. I will tell people right from the beginning, I'll be like, listen, you don't need to spend this money with us. Let me tell you how to do this. Go to the building department, or pull up this on the city appraiser's map, or whatever. And I just save them whatever, our minimum fee, whatever that is. And I'm just like, listen, you don't need us for this.
Yeah.
Do it yourself. Or let me tell you a way to get around it. So for us, it's more about, we feel very strongly about giving. We're giving. I mean, ultimately, if I can't give business away or give solutions away free, then how would I expect them to come back to me if I can't give them in the first place? So we do give a lot of free advice, which is great, and we've had some incredible success because we're very transparent and honest right from the beginning. And I think the other thing that Nathan will probably agree with me on is that we become very close with our clients, where they are our friends, and so they do truly trust our advice. Now, ultimately, it's their house or their business and their money, so they're going to make the decisions that they feel comfortable with. We can only be there to guide them.
Yeah.
But when that trust is there, the trust is there. I mean, that's everything.
And it is critical, particularly from, to a degree for commercial projects, but definitely on the residential, is that you're designing someone's home, like a custom home that is tailored to exactly their lifestyle. And that involves a level of intimacy in how they live their daily lives that requires that they trust us in order to give us that information, right? We need to, that there are aspects of everyone's life that, that maybe they don't normally share with a group of professionals that they just met, right? Yeah. People don't tell their accountants everything, right? Like they don't tell their lawyers everything. And so for us to be able to properly design something that actually meets their need, to say, listen, I rarely clean my house. I do laundry once a month and it just piles up, right? I need to know that, because if you also like to entertain, let's find a spot where you can hide all that.
Yeah.
And that's it. There's no judgment on our side with
Sure.
it, but I need to know that. So if you're like, well, we can have a small laundry room, the whole thing. Well, maybe you don't. Maybe you have a really large laundry room with huge hampers and they're built in and you can close them and hide them and all that. If that's how you want to do laundry, absolutely, let's do it that way. And we find a way to work around all of those things so that you can have a wide open floor plan that you can entertain hundreds of people and do all that, and continue to hide the fact that you've got mountains of laundry in there, if that's something that embarrasses you, right?
Yeah,
Just as an example. But the level of...
If I was a bachelor, that would be me.
So it's just the level of intimacy and the amount of information we actually need from them. It requires that we are sort of as transparent on our side as well, right? There's a give and take of being upfront about the schedules and the costs and what's involved and all of those things that
so true.
as to why we need that information.
Yeah, so true.
So I notice how really well aligned the two of you are as people. And like every interaction I've had with you guys at this point, I can tell you like each other, which is a really important aspect of working together. But you clearly work quite well together, and I know that you haven't always known each other. And so I'm really curious, how have you, and our audience, I mean, we've got all sorts of people who are in various stages of growing their business, and I know for myself, when I started hiring people, it was scary. And personalities, I might hire for skill but not pay attention to personality. And I'm watching the two of you grow well together. I'm like, how can we, as an audience, learn from this? How can we replicate it? How did you find each other?
Trial and error, right?
Yeah? How's this work?
Yeah.
Do you want to answer?
Yeah, I mean, I think I realized probably about 2 years into starting the firm was that, I realized quickly what my weakness was.
All right, be honest, what is it?
And it was in sort of where the priorities were in doing the work took away from the communication and sort of client experience in how they were communicating with me, how I was able to, get back to them and sort of keep them informed and calm and comfortable throughout the whole process.
Yeah.
In that I was so focused on doing really great work. And so
Like an artist.
And with every business, right? As a small business owner, right? You have to wear every hat. And I was prioritizing the sort of work product hats, and not so much the business and customer retention and all of those hats. And so I realized early on, like that's the weakness. And so I needed to find someone who the clients would love and that was able to talk to them and also understood the design industry. And that's not always, I think designers as a whole, not always are we the most, extrovert type of people. So, to find that is, I think it's probably a somewhat atypical early hire as a small architecture firm, is that a lot of the focus is on sort of people to do, drafting and production and other architects and designers and kind of building that. And then sort of the marketing and business side's kind of going to get filled in.
Well, and it usually gets filled in with an outsource. Rarely can you just say, "Oh, I'm going to hire a guy internal."
Yeah, and what I realized is that it is the person that I needed was I can handle the work stuff, but I couldn't handle the other side. In addition to also producing good work.
Were you running into pain points, or were you predicting pain points?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
But it was sort of when I needed to focus on the business side of things and the customer side of things, the work suffered.
Got it.
And vice versa. And there was not enough hours in the day or the week or the month to do both well.
Okay, so you're realizing all of this. Where are you?
So Nathan and I knew each other about 2 years before, just before the pandemic we met, and I started a small business. It was a construction company actually. And but I was brand new from California. I moved here just before the pandemic, so I didn't really know anyone. So when the pandemic hit, trying to start a construction company when you don't know anyone is a little challenging. But we met and we worked on a couple of projects together and really liked each other, but I was a consultant for his firm and he was just starting off, so it was touch points throughout the years. And then I decided to move on from the construction company because I had a bad partner.
Okay.
And I started a construction consultancy, and so I would help people find architects and contractors, and I was like the project manager, but I was also the hub that brought everybody, the catalyst that brought it together, the budget, the clients, the financing, whatever, brought it all together. So he and I had already known each other and worked together, and then when I mentioned to him that I was going to go back to a full-time position, because I felt being an independent contractor, I'm a very social person. I love being in the office. I love interacting with clients. Working from home just did not work for me at all. At all. And so when he heard that I might be looking for a full-time position, we talked. And I think one of the things that came out of it, and he's a visionary and an entrepreneur. I'm what we call a reluctant entrepreneur. I was an entrepreneur because I had to, and I also didn't want to go to my grave without saying that I tried it, you know?
Yep, fair.
Right?
Yeah.
But as a reluctant entrepreneur, I have all the skills to be an entrepreneur, except maybe his vision. So when we were first talking, he and I said, wouldn't it be great if you had the best number 2 that you'll ever find? And I don't want to be number 1. I don't want to be you. I don't want to be the CEO. What I want to be is behind the scenes and make you look great. And so we had that understanding right from the beginning.
How do you say no to that? I mean,
that really is, that's kind of unreal though, if you think about it, especially a former entrepreneur, because there is that fear that it's actually a visionary who's tired, who will get back to being visionary. You had that clarity coming into that conversation?
Absolutely. 100%.
What a gift for both of you.
And I could tell, because I in just my interactions with him previous to that, is that his ability to implement and execute
Visionary
on those things,
implementer, got it.
to be sort of running the operations of things and doing all of that, I could tell that that's where his strengths were. And so, you know, it meshed well with the fact that it was filling in all of the weaknesses that I knew that I had.
Okay, and when did this kick off? When did you guys make this official?
Well, so it's funny you should ask that, because I had just finished reading Rocket Fuel, which is about the VI Comba, the Visionary Integrator, and I just finished reading it, and Nathan and I started talking right around Thanksgiving of last year, so 2022.
I don't remember now.
So we're in 24.
You started in 23.
Time flies, yeah.
You started
Yeah,
in
so-
23, so it was in end of 22.
Right, end of 22. We started talking, and I had just finished reading that book, and there's another one called Make the Noise Go Away, I believe it's called, and it's same concept, the Visionary Integrator. Some people call it the Visionary Operator, but it's the same concept.
Same concept, yeah.
And so when we started talking, I just read that book, and this was at the end of 2022, and we said, okay, let's just go for it. Screw it, let's go for it. Let's see what happens. And our business has quadrupled in that 1 year, and when people are like, oh, isn't Nathan so happy to have you? And I'm like, no, we're so happy to have each other. Like, I couldn't have done this without him, and he couldn't have done this without me. And so our business has quadrupled because we make a great team. I mean, I do cut him off, and I finish his sentences half the time, but that's okay.
He seems to have tolerance for it.
He has tolerance for it. It's good. It's all good. But we've been doing this. We play off each other so well. It's like Laurel and Hardy almost, but like in a real world sense. But we play off each other. We love telling stories. And I mean, like when we're illustrating something to a client, and we're like, the reason we don't want you to do it this way, we would recommend you do it this way, is let me tell you a real world story. Let me tell you what happened to me when I did my own remodel. Let me tell you what happened to one of our clients just last week. And those third-party stories really reinforce the lesson that we've already learned. And we do that so well as a team that it's the clients like it, they love it, and it really helps us kind of solidify our roles in the company as well. One of the things I always do is when a client comes to the office, no matter who they are, and even if we're not going to work with them, I walk them out. I walk them to their car. And it's one of those things, because that customer service, that kind of those touch points, and then I follow up with an email. And again, even if they're not going to be a client of ours, I just thank them for their time. And it's personal. Like when people are like, well, I like you guys, but who am I actually going to be working with? I'm like, no, you're going to be working with us. Like you call, you're going to get one of us. And if we're not in the office, trust me, we'll get back to you. One of us is going to get back to you. So it is that personal boutique team work. That work. It's, you know, the yin and the yang.
How big is your company right now when it comes to an employee size? How many people?
6.
So you got some drafts people? Is that some of it?
Yeah, we have another project architect and interior designers and draftspeople and so yeah, we're at
6.5 actually.
Yeah, we're at a comfortable level that we're able to handle just about everything that comes our way.
Yeah.
You know, we're finally at an opportunity to be able to sort of turn down projects that don't fit our.
So I was a mystery yes guy for a long time. If it came in, I'd say yes, and I'd find a way to do it, and it was just, I don't know, I don't like turning down work. It's you want to offer me money and you believe in me that much, we're going to do this. That can be toxic. That can be an interesting problem. So what is your rubric for how you make a decision on, it's cute to say firing an opportunity, but you're not necessarily voting on who they are, but maybe you are.
You want to answer this?
There isn't really a rubric.
Okay.
There's, part of it is, at the end of the day, we want to make sure that it's a profitable project for the company.
Yep.
But the way that we can determine that is, is there a value that we are bringing to that project?
Correct.
And
Okay.
does the client understand and appreciate and want us to bring that value?
We turned down a lot of projects that were like, it does not make sense for you to spend this money with us. It does not make sense. It's not going to serve you to the value point.
Okay.
That's the value proposition for them. I think the other thing, and we're lucky enough to not, I always say, we are lucky to not have to work with assholes. And so what I mean by that is, if you're coming to us as a client and it's all about the bottom line, you don't care about quality, you want to just throw up these multifamily homes that are going to fall down in 5 years, they're going to start having problems, that's not us.
Right.
And you're not going to like working with us. We're not going to like working with you.
Right, because you're going to be pushing back to make sure that there's at least a baseline quality
for everybody.
Yep, right. I get it.
So
I mean, there's we tried to put together sort of if it's this type of project, politely tell them no. But what we've realized is that it's not. There isn't a type of project or a size of project or anything that is or is not the right project for us. It really comes down to the complexity of it. We tend to take on the projects that are more complex. We are, we've said that we may not be the first call because we're newer and younger and not as well known, but we're going to be the last. We've taken over on several large, complicated projects where the design team was either unable to produce or was underperforming.
Wow.
And they needed to find somebody else to do that. And so we stepped in those situations.
I'll add to that. We always strive to make the world a better place, right? Or a prettier place, or a nicer place, or easier for people with disabilities. Or so again, if the project doesn't fit this sort of, are we making things better? Are we adding value? Are we just taking money because there's no other solution for this client and we can make a profit off of it? That's less enticing for us as it is to say, who are we working with? Are we working with the best contractors? Are we working with ethical contractors? Are our clients getting what they need? Are we making sure that we're not overcharging for our services? We're fair. And so all of that comes into the equation. And we have conversations all the time and we're like, I know this isn't our typical project, but I think we might be helping this person out. Mm-hmm. Are we willing to take this project? And so there's a lot of communication with that. And then there's a lot of people that just come to us where I'm just like, I'm sorry, we can't help you, but and I'll tell you where you should be looking, but we're not the right firm for you. And I don't even talk to Nathan about it. I just make sure that the person is taken care of and we move on because we're not at the right firm.
I like that you're parting with a certain level of care, though. I think there are some businesses that are proud that they've made it to that point where it's like, I don't have to accept that work, and there's kind of that drop the mic moment where it feels good to be that Machiavellian, which is completely the antithesis of what good customer relationships are. And you guys seem to have that nailed down.
We have a couple of our Google five-star Google reviews were from clients that we said, listen, we don't think this is a good use of your money. It was a job. It was close to a $200,000 job, and we thought that they shouldn't spend more than $100,000 on it. And
wow.
We spent about 4 months with them over the period for free. We didn't charge them a dime. We spent 4 months with them just working through the budget to make sure, because our initial gut reaction when we first met them was like, your budget's low. Your budget is low, but let's bring in the contractor. Like I said, bring them in early. Let's run some numbers and just verify that maybe we're wrong. We've been doing this for a long time, but in this case, we weren't wrong. But we spent that 4 months with them basically saying, it's going to be much more expensive and we don't think it's worth it for you. And I was like, listen, go on a nice vacation. I mean, they were retired. Go on a vacation. Use that money for something else. Don't spend it on this. And the reviews reflect that level of us putting ourselves forward. And
that's great.
Our fee would have been substantial for that. But that's okay. I mean, I have to sleep at night. I have to look at myself in the mirror.
Because again, as Frank mentioned, right, at the end of the day, if we were paid to design something that they then could not afford to build,
ouch.
that's not what we were hired to do.
Yeah.
And I know that there are firms that do that, right? They'll collect their design fees and they'll move on, and it is what it is.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think it's could we do that? Absolutely.
Sure.
But it's not something that that Frank or I could sleep well at night saying, like, they paid us thousands of dollars to do something for them with a certain goal in mind, and we hit all of the other goals except for the main one of how much is it going to cost to build it, and we were so far off that they can't even do it, right? So now 6 months of their lives plus their money is now wasted on something.
Well, and
that
the
they can't do.
excitement and then the heartbreak of a situation like that.
Exactly.
Josh, it's like going into a car dealer and the salesperson selling you on the most expensive one, and then you get so excited about it, it's all the bells and whistles, and then they show you the sticker, and you're like, oh my god, I can't afford that.
Yep.
Or that, and then you're like, well, yeah, I get the one with the crank up windows now, so nobody wants that, right? Nobody wants to walk into that car showroom and fall in love with, or the house. You want to buy a house, and the deal falls through for whatever reason. We've all been through that, right? We all know that experience.
Yeah.
So the empathetic side of us, the human side of us is like, well, how do we avoid that disappointment, right? And that's to be honest right from the beginning. And we lose jobs that way. It's okay.
Yeah. But we're very upfront. If people come to us and say we want to do X and our budget is this, and we're like, we don't think that's going to be possible to do. So we're working with a client now on a custom home that they came to us with sort of a rough floor plan of what they were thinking, right? Just kind of sketches of things. I think one of their siblings or something has used some software and put things together, which is normally actually really helpful for us to see sort of what they're thinking in terms of what rooms go where.
Normally really helpful.
Well, and in this case, it was in that we were able to see that their idea for what they wanted in their home and what their budget was were very, very far apart. And so, we put together just a small proposal for them where they could invest a little bit of money in our time on the design process for us to say, okay, well, you're showing us an 8,000 square foot house. I think everything you want can fit in a 4,000 square foot house.
Okay.
And I think that's going to more fit your budget in terms of what you want to spend on the construction.
Correct.
So just give us a couple weeks to just play around with, can we make all this fit? We're not going to do computer renderings and the full, construction drawings, but let's just sketch some
2D
options.
floor plans.
Exactly.
Yes.
Let's just do some space planning to see, like, are you comfortable with the fact? Do you really need this room to be that big? Or are you comfortable with, once we've thrown in some, basic furniture and some other things for you to see how big that is, does that work for you? And if that still doesn't work for them, then we're going to say, you know what? We can't do more than that. And they've only invested this little bit, right?
So this is their feasibility study.
Exactly. And so, on a residential scale, it's easy for us to do that, and it's incredibly helpful. And then we can talk to a contractor that we can bring them in, just make the kind of initial introduction, and then they can look at the sketch plans and say, hey, we've got 4,000 square feet. They kind of like these finishes and this type of a roof, and the site's going to need some fill added to it. How much do you think it's going to be? And just from their experience, we work with really experienced contractors that we make referrals for. They can say, hey, the last 10 houses I was building that were roughly this thing, they cost about X number of dollars a square foot. This is either going to work or it's not going to work. And if we're not in the ballpark, if we're not even close to that, then it doesn't make sense for us to go charge, 10x on what that investment was to do a full set of drawings that they can't build. We've determined, 2 weeks in, it is or it's not going to happen.
I'll tell you a funny story.
That's awesome.
When I did my own remodel, we hired an architect because he was in Dwell magazine, and we interviewed 2 architects, and they were both incredibly talented, and we chose one. And we were in pre-construction development, schematics, design development, construction documentation, got a full set of construction documents, and we spent, I'd say, about $30,000 in about 9 months of our life. And then we put it out to bid. This was before design build was trendy or even something that people talked about. And the contractors came back $200,000 to $400,000 more than we had. And so we're devastated, we're devastated because we spent all this money and spent all this time to find out that what we fell in love with, we couldn't have. And so then now you're pulling things
That hurts.
out. And I kept on saying to the the architect, I kept on saying, well, how much is this going to cost? And without question, every time he said, I don't know, I'm not a And to me, that's a broken system, right? That's a broken system. And so if we can do what we call a PDA, a preliminary design assessment, for just like Nathan was talking about, a short amount of time, very little cost, very little investment on our customer's part, and give them those rough numbers right away. At that time, if I knew that it was $200,000 to $400,000 more than I had, I would have been stopped. Let's redesign this. Or let's come up with a better plan.
Yeah.
Or let's not do this now. Let's wait 3 years when I have another $200,000.
Right. Yeah. So, well, your go no go comes with options in that situation where it's like, your options are scale back and go, or stop, save some money, save these designs or these pre-designs, and revisit at a later date. But in both cases, they don't hate you. Hey, Bootstrapped Unicorns. I just wanted to remind you that Viking Bags has sponsored us, and the reason why they sponsored us is they kind of thought I was cool. That was awesome. And they thought I was cool because they think you're cool. They think our audience is the right audience for them. And so I wanted to share this bag again. This, I'll be honest, other bags make me look like I'm a college kid again, and I feel almost smaller wearing them. This look and feel fits who I see myself as. I'm a professional that cares about look and durability. I care about protecting my expensive equipment, which is almost always in this bag, but I also want to look like I mean business. And this means business. This bag means business. So if you are a professional who cares about how you look, in fact, look at this again, one more time. That is a strong looking bag right there. Now I don't have my jacket in there right now, so it's not as puffed out as it usually is, but you will look great with this. And if you're a motorcycle enthusiast, you're gonna love all of the Viking Bags product line. So I'm brutal on the industry on your behalf because I like you guys. So throw me under the bus on that. I know you're trying to give some cred to some other people that maybe they also understand.
There are a lot of good people in our industry.
Good. That's good.
And again, we're our experience is slightly skewed in that we're receiving clients that obviously had a bad experience.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they would have gone back for their next project to the architect they worked with before.
Yep.
And we're not getting those clients, right? So those are a lot harder to win over.
Sure. Right.
And so where our judgment's definitely skewed, or our experience in terms of who we're speaking with. Are people looking for a better experience than they last had, or organically perhaps this is the first time for them, and hopefully we're going to provide them with that experience. But I think the other part of that design assessment is that we make it very clear in our agreement that we hold no copyright to any of the stuff that we are going to come up with you on this. So it's as much of the client getting to know us and making sure they like working with us,
correct,
as we are like working with them. And all of that information, we want to treat that really like an asset. All of that work has to get done by somebody, whoever their architect ends up being. And so to find out the zoning information and how much they can build and what their setbacks are and is there any wetlands and all the stuff that we would do that research on, that's just knowledge about their own property. We can't copyright that anyway, right? But even if we put things together where they're telling us, how their spaces need to be laid out or any of that works, and we start doing all that space planning, if they don't like working with us,
they can walk away with it. We can walk away
with this, and they can go find someone else, and they can go work with that. But the reason that we are careful about saying that that's an investment rather than a fee to do
our retention rate is really high with our clients. When Nathan says they can go away, that doesn't happen.
They don't go away.
They don't go away.
Yeah.
But it truly is an investment in that it is the first step, and that hopefully if they do end up going to another, that they get a discount on that preliminary phase of work, because they can say, look, I've brought all this, I know where I want all the rooms to be, I know all of the different spaces and how they work, here's all the information about my property, all the soils, all of those things, and then they can start that process, because we want to work with people that like us and that we like them.
There are bad lawyers and there are good lawyers. I know a couple of really amazing lawyers and there are bad lawyers. There are bad contractors, and I know a couple of really great contractors that I would trust with my own house.
There you go.
I can think of two of them right now off the top of my head. There's much more out there. I mean, we have in our sort of contractor arsenal, we've got about 10 contractors that I know by their first name. They know me by my first name, and I would trust them coming to my house, right? But I'm thinking of two in particular that I would literally hire tomorrow. Wow. So I think when you go into a meeting and presenting a design build model, and you say, look, I would actually hire this contractor myself. And again, going back to we don't work with assholes, that's with the contractors as well. And so when you can bring that, when you can honestly bring that to a meeting with a client and say, this guy is that good, that's a really strong place to be. It's a very powerful place. And if someone proves to be a bad contractor, we know pretty quickly. After that first or second meeting with a contractor, you can tell if they're just in it for the money, if they know what they're doing. You know, a lot of roofers get into roofing because it is such a profitable business. That doesn't mean they're good roofers.
Right.
Right. And so contractors, it's another thing. The overhead and profit for construction is pretty high. So these guys are making good money if they do it right. And so there's contractor-driven jobs and there's architectural-driven jobs. The ones that we bring to the table, the architectural-driven ones, we can control and we can make sure that everyone's good. The contractor wins, the homeowner or business owner wins, we win, everybody wins. And then if a contractor brings us a job and we get a funny feeling about that contractor that maybe it's not going to be a win-win for everybody and it's just about the contractor's profit, we walk away really early. We actually just walked away from one today.
Wow. Yeah, that's a fresh decision.
Yeah, and I think too that Frank's mentioned design build is that it's there is a sort of contractual method of design build where there's sort of one contract and then that person does the design and the construction. And so in the way that we like to run our jobs is that it functions as a design build, but it is still that we have a contract with the client and the contractor has a contract with the client.
Correct.
So we're not holding all of that, and so that there are still options, right? There's a lot of trust that goes into finding someone to do design build where it's all one, right? There's zero competitive bidding of any kind. There is there's a lot less transparency to that process. And again, we don't want to necessarily be involved in the selection of the contractor. We're happy to make the referrals. We're happy to let our clients know we're comfortable with these people working on our house, our own personal homes. We've had successful projects in the past with these, but it's your call, right? Because we might be showing up once a week for that.
But you're going to see them every day.
Every single day. And, if it's someone that you don't really want at your home or your business every single day because you don't like working with them, you don't like their personality, whatever it is, that's going to be a really bad 6 months or 2 years of your life that you're dealing with, right?
It's amazing how much 6 months sounds bad, but then you say, or 2 years, you go, oh, yeah, that's a pause moment when you think about having a bad contractor or even a bad personality, but a good contractor on your property for 2 years. Right. That's scary stuff.
It is.
So you guys mentioned design build in large projects a lot, but I remember you saying that you solved a problem business model wise where you can answer the call on smaller projects as well. And I found that really interesting. Can you kind of peel back the onion layers on how you've also managed to solve that in the marketplace?
Sure. So we launched a separate brand under the same company that's called Seamless Design Build that where essentially we are going to be acting as an owner's rep for smaller construction projects that primarily even on the mostly on the residential side where the budget doesn't really allow for, or there may not be the need for a general contractor to be overseeing that project. So when there's only a few subcontractors that are needed for it. The scope of the work is relatively simple in terms of nothing sort of major structural that has to happen. The liability is also really low. Is that to help them organize the construction process and manage that process for them? We're not serving as the general contractor, but without the sort of overhead and profit and any additional markup on that, we're just sort of coordinating all of the trades. And so in that process, where we saw that there was a gap was that the contractors that we really liked working with, it became very difficult for them to take on those types of projects because the profit margin just wasn't there. And so the contractors who were available for those projects, we didn't really feel were all that qualified to be doing even those types of projects. So the ones willing to take those projects on weren't executing really well. And the ones that could execute well didn't want those projects. So there's still a huge group of people who need a master bedroom addition, or a kitchen remodel or things that are smaller in scope. So how can we serve those? And even for us, the design fees weren't profitable for us. So for us to do, our minimum design fee on a project, they could get the work done for a mass. Like they don't need to spend our fee to get a square box with a little roof on it. Like it doesn't make sense.
I think we
just can't do it. So
right.
How do we? Yeah.
Well, you've got me now because I don't know how. Because everything I've heard so far is nothing aligns. And so where did you find the alignment?
Nathan came up with the idea. I have to be honest. So there's the big contractors here in Winter Park that are tearing down all the houses, and they're doing a nice job of making these nice new homes, and obviously it's easier to tear a house down here than, so we're not necessarily want to play in that field when it comes to seamless. I mean, we'll do that, we'll be an architect on something,
sure,
but we're not gonna, that's not seamless.
We're not trying to compete at all with the contractors that we work
Correct.
with and that we refer out to the larger jobs.
Yeah, those guys are too busy and don't want these jobs that we're talking about right now.
And then you have the sort of the very respectable handyman, or the smaller contractor that takes these jobs down here less than $100,000, There's this gap between 100,000 and I'm going to say 300,000 to 500,000 in there, where it's very hard to find someone trustworthy in that. So that was the first light bulb, was people were coming to us and they were frustrated because they couldn't find a contractor in that area that would take their job. And then the other side of it is, Nathan has a master's in architecture, obviously. I have my master's in fine arts, so I don't know I fit into this category somehow.
Film and interpretive dance.
But Nathan has a second master's in entrepreneurship. So he was looking at it and he's like, look, if our client has this much money, a pie, let's say it's 100%, whatever that pie is, and they can't go any higher than that pie. And let's say that pie is $300,000, or maybe it's $250,000, whatever, it could be $100,000. Whatever that 100% is, if you say, hey, electrician, your slice of the pie is here. And then plumber, your slice of the pie is here. Design team, it's here. Construction, demo. When you look at that, they can't spend more than that 100%, no matter what. So if you're able to say, look, you do it for this, can you do it for this amount? You can? Was it a little tough? Okay, well, let me see. Can you do it for this amount? Yeah, I can do it for that amount. No, I need a little bit more room. It's basically you put those puzzle pieces together and you get that 100%, and then you go, because a normal contractor's OH&P, overhead and profit, is pretty significant. And so if that's going into the contractor's pocket, if we say, look, these are nice people who want to help them out, they're a growing family, they need extra room, what's their 100%? So the clients are usually, sometimes reluctantly, but eventually, because we say to clients, look, you can tell me what your budget is, or you can pay me to tell you what you can afford. Either way, we're going to come to a budget. I would rather you just tell me and not charge you to come up with a number. I would rather just say, well, my number is X. Let's build that pie. We have 100%. If everybody can do their part, maybe even at a slight discount so it works, and then we go back, now we're filling that central area there. And the best part is we know what we're doing, and you don't necessarily need a general contractor on every single job.
Right.
And it's really sort of just working backwards, right? Is that
Correct.
if we have established that it's $250,000 for a budget for something, is that if we can work backwards and we have the basic drawings there that shows what we're going to be doing electrically, and we go to the electrical contractor and say, can you do this for this amount that's available in the budget? They say, I can't do it for that. And then we say, okay, well, what can you do for this amount of the budget, right? And he says, well, we can't do all these outdoor lights. We have to take those off and the whole thing. Well, now we've just eliminated that scope of work from there. That's something they can do later, right?
Sure.
And we can, go over that with the client and make sure they're on board with it. But we're now having the electrician agree to a certain scope of work that is reasonable for the work that's being done, right? And the same thing with the plumber and everybody else. Is that, if we want a level 5 finish on the drywall, which is, where everything is plastered over, the highest level you can get. And we talk to the framer and the drywall finisher, and they're like, there's no way. But, these particular walls have a lot of light shining on them. So we could probably do like these, 8 or 10 walls at level 5, and then we'll do level 4 everywhere else. But we're saying, you've got X number of dollars. That's the total amount for framing and drywall. What can you do for that? And then, we're out the door at the full dollar value of their budget, and
Sure.
they know exactly what they're getting for everything, and we can move forward with it.
That makes a lot of sense. It kind of reminds me of every once in a while I'll play cards with my kids, and the goal is that the youngest kid wins, and everybody, the whole family's in on the thing. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes you gotta pre-shuffle your cards and make sure that the gameplay lands in the favor of the youngest. We did this with Candyland with my kids a lot. Like, you got to make sure that the youngest always gets the super cool card that does the super cool thing. Mm-hmm. And it almost, not to make it pejorative, because you're not treating the homeowner who has a whole bunch of money in their pocket they're going to spend with you as little kids, but the goal is that they win.
Correct.
And so if everybody's in on the game and playing the game together, and we all understand that the goal is that this one person or one family wins, then you play the cards kind of open hand, and everybody understands that we're doing this as a team mm-hmm. to get the win for that one person. The spirit is the same.
But I think to your point is that we both win in that, as the parent for the child, you won because your kid's happy.
100%.
And they won.
That's right.
They're happy, right? And they won. And so it's mutual, right? Is that you're not also saying,
I didn't lose for you to win.
Right.
I won here.
Also. Exactly.
Yeah.
The analogy that I like, and I might be butchering it because I haven't seen this movie in forever, but A Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe. The epiphany moment that he had as a professor was, in the movie, there was, and I might be butchering the scene completely, there was 2 women or 3 women that came up, and they were in college, and these 3 guys were sitting around, but there was only 2 women. That's what it was. I believe. And the 2 guys wanted to go for the prettier girl. And he had this aha moment where he's like, wait a minute, I have a greater chance of getting the cute girl, not the really pretty one, because the other 2 guys are competing for the other one. So we're looking at it similarly, where we're like, there is a whole opportunity level here that is being ignored because everyone's going for that other business. And that was our aha moment, where it's like, yeah, there is a whole business here that is being ignored. Right? And the same as in that scene where when he had that moment, I think he actually married the girl in the movie, I could be wrong, but the idea was he was like, less competition, she's smart, she's cute, and I don't have to work.
You don't have to fight.
You watch that movie again so these start to make more sense.
I need to watch the movie again because every time I give this analogy, I butcher it.
So your homework, should you choose to accept it, is to go. And actually, since you use it so much, just go to Amazon Prime tonight and buy a copy. So you can't avoid.
We can pull it up on YouTube right now if we wanted to. But anyway, I think
and that's phase 2. Actually, at some point, we're gonna figure out how to just project it up there so we can all turn and watch things.
And the scene comes on, and I'm completely wrong, right?
Wrong.
But
that'd be hilarious. Oh my god. Yeah.
But
I think this is Transformers.
But to your point about sort of the types of business we choose to take versus not take, is that there was a time sort of right before we started pursuing Seamless, was that those were the projects that we were having to turn away because they weren't profitable for us.
Sure.
In that, if on an average, if your pre-construction cost is going to be somewhere around 10, it could be, let's say 8 to 15% of your construction budget. Mm-hmm. We don't price things that way, but it's generally where it comes out to. All your professional fees and your permit fees and your surveyor and all of those things going into it. Is that if you've got $100,000 to spend on a bathroom renovation, you're not going to spend 15 or 20 on a designer, right? That only leaves the 80 left, right? And so that doesn't make sense, right? For all those professional fees to be there. However, and what we were finding also is that most clients had no problem spending that on their contractor, right? The contractor would say, well, this is a $100,000 project, I'll do it for $100,000. Really, they're getting $70,000 worth of work, and they're paying the contractor $30,000. Mm-hmm. So there was no issue with that, but there is usually a huge issue on the front end of that, of paying for the design fees, right?
Got it.
And so what we were finding is that we couldn't do those projects for less than what we would normally charge. But if we were involved throughout the entire project, where we were serving as that project manager and looking at the total fee of design plus construction management, now it made sense for us to do it, and it was still the same or less money out of pocket for the client.
Right. That makes so much sense.
So if we do the whole, so now those projects, we don't turn them away. We just say, this is the way we can do that project. And if you're not comfortable with that, if you still want to just go hire a general contractor and do that, all the power to it. We just can't do the design work. because it's not profitable for us.
I used to run into this actually fairly often. A good friend of mine who just recently passed, his name's John Riley, owned a business called Metrics Marketing. And we would do a lot of public bid work, and it was, our heart was in it. There was foster care and child protective services and a lot of really important stuff. And when those bids come out, it's usually, we have this bucket of money legislatively set aside for work that will include, and what, his was marketing work, and he would always come to me and go, they want 4 TV commercials out of this, and they want X number of social media. Josh, if we start breaking this out, can we do this? And so we were doing the same thing. We were taking a finite pie and carving it up to see how much we could eke out that was quality. And every once in a while, they'd be like, oh, and we want a Pixar-style animated character. And so then we would be the ones going, so that's 10x your current budget just for the character design and animation. So we're going to write the bid that says excluding this, and we'd figure it out. And I think there are those things in life where it's fixed price. And it's interesting how much of the architectural world didn't understand fixed price, and cost overruns were just expected and things like that. And so you're running into these opportunities and solving the problem of fixed bid opportunities, and what do you do with that?
Yeah. Fixed bid in our industry is called a negotiated contract, and what we look at when we're looking at a negotiated contract with the contractor or the homeowner, we're helping advise that. We always say, look, if there's something that you absolutely want, let's treat it as an ad alternate. Let me give you a real world example. A client of ours really wants an elevator, and the elevator and the house are not within the budget, but the house is within the budget. So we're like, let's treat the elevator as an adult. Let's build the elevator shaft now, and let's make it scalable for the future. If you want to add it back in, you get a bonus for $30,000 this year, and you want to add it back in, it's still on the estimate. It's an alternate. And same thing goes with subtract alts. If you have something on there and you absolutely want it, but at the end of the day, it just doesn't make sense with the budget, we'll pull that out. It's a subtract alt. But we've still done the due diligence. We know how much it's cost. We've gotten the budget, the estimates from the elevator contractor or whatever that thing is. It's not. Not everybody has an elevator in the house. It was just an example.
Everybody doesn't?
No.
Not that we found.
Okay.
Not that we found.
All right.
Research doesn't show, at least.
Every time I hear elevator in a home, I always go back to that movie Blast from the Past. Do you remember Christopher Walken and Brendan Fraser in this really cute movie where they go into a bomb shelter and they think a bomb went off, but a plane actually blew up nearby?
Yeah.
And so 30 years later, they come out, but there was a bar built over their former home. So the elevator breaks through the floor, and he just looks at the bartender and goes, "Leave my elevator alone." And so this bartender who's high as a kite thinks that it's actually like either God or Satan who has come up from the ground. And so now he starts a cult that is the Leave My Elevator Alone cult. That's what I hear when somebody has an elevator in their home. I'm sorry. You'll never unhear that now, and I apologize to you. Actually, I don't. You're welcome.
I live in a ranch, so there's no elevators in my house.
But your bomb shelter's underground. So it's a completely different thing, right? Yeah.
I think going back to the elevator thing without getting too tangential, I think when you look at aging in place, actually elevators are becoming more and more and more common, especially in affluent communities. But it is one of those things where it's just people are, we all know they're staying in their houses longer.
Yep.
Maybe not in Winter Park. They turn over very quickly.
Less of it is about convenience and more of it is about function. Not to say that we haven't done them as convenience-based things, but a lot of it is, I plan to live here for however many years into retirement and
got to fit beyond. A wheelchair, walker.
And, the second floor, I don't want to not be able to use it.
Yep.
And so that's why a lot of times we do design sort of the shaft for that, and it just becomes kind of a large closet. And then when they're ready to do that, it can be outfitted to have the elevator in it.
Oh, that's cool. So I was wondering about that. Is it just a giant missile silo in the middle of the house?
Basically, we put a floor in there on the second floor, and you basically just have 2 stacked closets that could easily be removed. It's not structurally connected to anything.
Oh, super cool.
And then we can put the elevator inside that shaft afterwards.
This is why people have to hire these guys. That's such a smart use of that space. I totally thought you just had this weird tube that was like, plastered over.
And we try to make it as functional because there is, there's millions of 80, 90-year-olds who have no issue climbing up a set of stairs.
Sure.
And so there's no reason to think that you would have to have that. It's
Right.
more if I'm going to be building a
It's future-proof.
6,000 square foot custom home that I plan to live in until I die.
Might as well be ready.
There's a chance that I may
Yep.
not be able to use the second floor for whatever reason.
And
You might just-
carving it out after the fact is going to be a
you
mess.
might just break your leg on a regular basis, right? As a younger person and
lot
want to
of-
not have to climb the stairs.
A
So
lot
it's
of people just
more
put it
just-
in for resale too, but we are
That's true.
definitely getting tangential. But it's,
Well, this is fun to talk about. How often do we talk about elevators in luxury homes? Really, I know
I
this
think
is the
they're-
first in eons.
I think it's a fascinating concept, but
Me too.
I would rather have the square footage myself than an elevator.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of the times when we're putting them in, it's not a square footage issue that we're dealing
Right.
with.
Fair
point.
enough. Fair enough. Yeah.
That's a good point.
So, guys, I want to ask you just a couple of last questions. We're going to kind of land this plane, but I guess my biggest curiosity is, you've 4x'd over the recent years, last year plus. What does, say, like 26 look like? We're in 24. Let's skip over 25. What does the business look like? Where are you going over the next 3 years?
Well, I mean, I guess immediately we are moving into a larger office directly above where we're currently located on Lee Road. So that should hopefully be next month.
Okay.
I think that the goal for the next 2 years is really to increase the size of the projects that we're working on. As we have greater production capabilities with another licensed architect on board and more drafts people to be working underneath, our capacity to take on larger projects is going to be a lot easier. And for us, business-wise, that stabilizes cash flow.
Sure.
That's like any small business, that is the lifeblood, and that it's challenging on project-based work.
Right.
That you have to rely on the backlog of new projects coming in and all of that, and it seems like every month is a risk, right? That every expenditure that you have is, am I going to make payroll if I do this because I don't know about the next project and that kind of thing. So, the larger projects that are over a longer period of time, to stabilize things. I think that's my focus, at least, is increasing the sort of scale and scope of the projects.
I agree completely, and I think we've talked about it with Nathan being the visionary, obviously, but as the operations guy, we've talked about growing slowly and consciously, like by design, being cautious and not cautious. And you have to take risks in life, but I think growing smart. And we actually leased a 3,000 square foot space, knowing that we wouldn't need that much room right now, but we know that we have room to grow. And so we're forward thinking, but we're also not. We don't want to grow too fast. Nathan wants to keep the firm approachable and still be able to call it a boutique. And I think that personalized service is a differentiator for us, and we're very proud of that. So I think when you talk about the next 3 years, 3 to 5 years, I know we talked a lot about residential. We are a commercial architecture firm that takes on a few residential jobs a year. They're just really great residential jobs. I think when you look at the commercial jobs out there, there's so many opportunities to do exciting work. And I think those are the things that we're super excited about is, you have to be a lifelong learner and like learning new things and like getting into new industries and let's get into aerospace, whatever that looks like, right? We actually, one of the jobs that came across our plate this year was a robotics factory.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I'm not kidding. So a manufacturing plant. So that, to me, that's exciting, is the fact that, because as your reputation grows and your portfolio grows, so does your reach. And when your reach grows, then the opportunities start to grow, and then you start doing stuff that you never thought you would have. And I think that's the exciting part for me. Right?
Yeah, I think there has to be a level of patience that it's tough to not like to slow yourself down on growing too fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
for
that
sure.
There is a, I feel very responsible and grateful for the employees that we have. That I
Boy, do I get that.
I look to them and say that I'm grateful that they're here because I get to do the portions of this job that I like to do because they're doing the other things, and not that they should be grateful that they have a job. right?
Right.
And so, you know, the growth of the firm, I think, needs to be responsible enough where I'm not going to be hiring people for if one job to fall through to then just fire them.
Right.
I don't want to be, you know, pulling someone out of a career that they're at. Maybe they're not happy with it and that's why they're looking to go. But, you know, to be working somewhere for a month and then say, well, sorry guys.
Yep.
And so I wouldn't want that to be done to me, and so I don't want to do that. And so I want to grow in a way where it is, where I have the confidence enough to know that if I hire someone else, that it has the opportunity, whether they want to stay there or not, for it to be a long-term hire. That we're not just bringing on, you know, random people to fill roles that aren't really committed to the, you know, to doing their best work for the company. They're just there for the job, and you know, we're extremely selective in that process, and we have a phenomenal team.
We have a great culture.
That's so good.
That we're good.
But I think that goes right back to the, you know, if you want to run fast, run alone. You want to run far, run together. And I think you're living that out in your business. And I think those are wise goals. I mean, in 26, you will be bigger and stronger with that slow, deliberate cultural build of your growth. I think it's really commendable.
Thank you.
You know, I think with that, we're gonna start landing this plane here. Bootstrapped Unicorns, we've just heard a lot about architecture, but through the entire thing, we've heard about business model and intentional decision making, and also partnering where your strengths are weak so the other person can make you stronger. If you didn't catch those, then you haven't been listening closely, and you're probably paying attention to the road, which is, though it is a wise decision, go back and re-listen to this, because the business lessons are just rampant through this conversation, and you and I today are better for having heard this. I am so excited that we're friends now. And what is the best URL when people want to go look at what you've been doing? Where do we go?
It's aleskovsky.com.
I was going to say, spell it out.
Aleskovsky.
All right, and we'll make sure it's all in the show notes and everything so that you know how to find it in all of the easy and appropriate ways. As you always know, Bootstrapped Unicorns, the next episode, I have no clue who's going to be on. It'll be great, I promise. And it'll be yet another one where we learn together about the journey of entrepreneurship, and we find those tidbits that are necessary to integrate into our businesses as we grow. Your success and your ability to thrive is imperative in our country. It's small business that is the lifeblood of our country. We here at Bootstrapped Unicorns and all of our guests take your journey really seriously. As such, if you haven't joined the Bootstrapped Unicorns entrepreneurship and marketing group in Facebook, you're invited to. Just, you know, it's a little form to make sure that you're actually an entrepreneur of some kind. Early on your journey, far on your journey, doesn't really matter as long as you're serious about being on the journey. We want you in there. I don't sell in there. I could, but I don't. It's really a place for us to grow as a tribe so that we're all getting better and affecting our U.S. economy in some positive way. With that, we'll see you on the next episode. Don't forget to find us on all of the socials, and make sure you go and find their website, aleskovsky.com. See you on the next episode.